Good evening, Madam Speaker, honorable members, mediators, and listeners, and welcome to this evening's second debate. Mr. Andrew Glenn will be our timekeeper for this debate. He will be raising his hand to indicate the start of your time when you have 1 minute left and also to indicate the end of your time. Please be reminded to keep your mics muted unless you are called to address the floor or given permission to speak or ask a question. Presiding over this debate is Madam Speaker Wilkinson.
Good evening, everyone. I am Madam Speaker Wilkinson, and I now bring the motion of the topic, transactional leaders are more effective than transitional leaders. Transactional leaders. We have the government of Brazil as the proposition team and the government of Argentina as the opposition. I now recognize the opening speaker for the proposition team, the Honorable Minister Forward, Jamie Bahar. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Speaker. John Maxwell said that leaders become great, not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others. This quote leads to the firm stance that transformational leaders are more effective than transactional leaders. First, transformational leadership is defined by Northouse 2006 as a process that changes and transforms individuals through values, ethics, standards, and long-range goals. It also involves examining followers' motives, gratifying their needs, and caring for them. This type of leadership entails an outstanding type of influence that encourages followers to perform beyond that which is expected of them. Transformational leadership has been around for a while, Madam Speaker, and was started in 1975 by James B. Downton and was elaborated by James Burns in 1978. Madam Speaker, transactional leadership, however, is a direct contrast and is a leadership style that is used to motivate and direct followers through rewards when goals are achieved and punishment when mistakes are made. Transactional leaders are merely interested in maintaining status quo. We now take a look at some of the benefits of transformational leadership. Now, this type of leadership provides encouragement through motivation, Madam Speaker, that will enact change, create a positive work environment, and encouragement for goal achievement in the long term. It also offers support by forming relationships and offering praise for contributions made, which will result in a feeling of value and increase in job satisfaction. Additionally, it enforces a standard of integrity and inspires morality among members, and most of all, it does not accept the status quo and always seeks to improve current realities. Now we take into consideration the components of transformational leadership briefly. Leaders portraying the component of idealized influence act as a role model, Madam Speaker, that other people will emulate. Those who exhibit the concept of inspirational motivation communicate a vision so well that followers internalize it and make the goal of achieving that vision their own. That motivation to achieve is not fear-based, but inspired by example. Transformational leaders also practice the concept of intellectual stimulation by giving followers the support to be creative and innovative and encourage them to think outside the box and try new approaches without fear of repercussions. I repeat, without fear of repercussions, Madam Speaker. And finally, transformational leaders follow the concept of individualized consideration, where leaders listen carefully to the individual needs of their followers, demonstrating that they care about them as a people and not producers. Madam Speaker, we will now turn to some admirable figures who are cited as examples of transformational leadership. Barack Obama, who encouraged everyone who worked for him to be open about their ideas and thoughts for improvement. He wasn't afraid of change and encouraged it for everyone who worked with him. He made sure he was approachable for all of his employees. This helped him use innovation in government to make important changes for the future of the country. Nelson Mandela. Followers flocked to his authenticity, perseverance, and dedication. Mandela crawled through the trenches with his followers. He sought out freedom, respect, and equality for those same followers, and by doing so gained their trust and their everlasting support. Not only theirs, but people all over the world recognized their fight and supported their cause. Through this vision of peace, inspirational rhetoric skills, and moral conviction, Nelson Mandela became one of the most notable transformational leaders there ever was. Steve Jobs, also known for being one of the most iconic transformational leaders in the world, he used leadership to help transform his organizational structure, improve job satisfaction, and use products to change the world. Apple is well known for innovation, and that is largely due to the way jobs encourage employees and use transformational leadership to allow everyone to use creativity. Madam Speaker, transformational leadership is more effective because it changes and leads people for a better future. It creates leaders from example who will continue to empower others and develop followers into leaders, and not just for followers to obey the commands of a leader. I thank you.
We will now break for a brief intermission.
I now call the House back to order. We will resume with the opposition team, the Honorable Minister of Ours, Mr. Shakid Mears. You have 5 minutes.
Sorry, just before, apologies. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I was trying to ascertain at what point we actually would be able to ask questions. And then I saw the highlight that we should just raise our hands if we had a question to ask.
You can ask the question. Hello?
Hi, sorry, muted.
Yeah, you can ask the question.
Right, I wanted to ask the opening speaker if she was aware that Steve Jobs was fired from his position and what was the reason he was fired from the position at Apple, the company which he founded.
Ms. Bahar?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wasn't aware of that. I know he's deceased.
Thank you.
I now proceed. The Honorable Minister of Ours, Shakid Mears. You may go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Good night to everyone present, and a special good night to Madam Speaker and the opposing team. Myself and the other ministers of Team Argentina would like to thank the opposition for participating in this debate. It is our hope that we will have a fruitful and conclusive discussion. With that being said, I'd like to pose a question to everyone listening. Are transformational leaders, in reality, really more effective than transactional leaders? Picture yourself working at a fast food restaurant. The environment is fast paced and requires your active engagement for you to provide fast food for customers. Let's say you come in for your shift and it's already busy. The orders are flying in, you don't have much time to rest, and stress levels are high. Now, imagine how much more chaotic this situation would be without someone leading you with clear procedures, decision making that provides impact, and clearly outlined goals for the day. Frankly, it would be an operational mess. Transactional leadership affords the ability to coordinate team members to maximize output. Jobs in fast food production, military organizations, and a multitude of other fields in which base level employees and recruits make up the largest portion of their labor force require tried and tested leadership practices. It is an undeniable fact that many organizations that shape how we live our lives have established large scale operations, and as such, focus is placed on optimal resource use and management of large groups of staff. Do you know which leadership style prioritizes those objectives? I'm sure by now you've realized. Yes, it is transactional leadership. Ultimately, as an owner of a business or the CEO of a company, you want results from a motivated and efficient staff while also making profits. Well, that's what a transactional leader brings to the table: the ability to take your base level employees and reduce costs while improving productivity levels. I would now like to inform you about three successful transactional leaders. The first is Elon Musk, a successful transactional leader, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. He has used his managerial skills and vision to motivate his teams and drive them forward, achieving ambitious goals. He sets clear expectations and performance metrics for his employees and offers rewards and incentives for meeting these goals. For example, he has offered bonuses to employees who help Tesla meet its production targets and has publicly praised and recognized employees who have made significant contributions to the company. Another example is Jack Welch, a successful transactional leader, the CEO of General Electric. During his tenure at GE, he implemented a number of management by exception strategies, including setting aggressive performance targets and holding employees accountable for meeting these targets. He also used rewards and incentives to motivate employees, such as offering promotions and bonuses to high performing teams and individuals. Marissa Mayer was another successful transactional leader as the CEO of Yahoo. She implemented a number of contingency reward strategies, such as offering bonuses and other incentives to employees who help the company achieve its business goals. I say all this to say, my team and I disagree with the stance that transformational leadership is better than transactional leadership. In fact, as we end off our introduction, we'd even go so far as to question the opposition. Is it not fair to say that transactional leaders and transformational leaders each play irreplaceable roles in organizations? Thank you, Madam Speaker. That is all.
We will now break for an intermission.
I now call the House back to order.
I now go for the rebuttal from the proposition team, the Honorable Minister of Defense, Ms. Abby Garcia. You have 5 minutes.
Madam Speaker, transactional leaders are not more effective since they encourage adherence to procedures and a hierarchical relationship between managers and employees for optimal job performance. When a leader consolidates power in an organization according to positions and status, do you not agree that hierarchies tend to stifle innovation due to the conceptualization of power? For many businesses, that characterizes transactional leaderships. Employees are not given the opportunity to expand their skill sets, nor are they given the room to be creative, yet alone express their distinctive thoughts, because of the high amounts of micromanagement that prevails in those settings. Hence, the working environment in transactional systems is extremely regimented, with parallels to the military as well. This is not effective. In fact, it has been stated that up to 75% of people who are employed in organizations that utilizes transactional leadership feel like they are not given the full creative potential that they deserve. While only 8% of figures in high business position strongly agree that they are allowed extra room for creativity, according to a survey conducted by Psychology Today. Also, the idea that status quo thinking should be prioritized more instead of challenging it is not effective, Madam Speaker. Although it may seem vital for leaders to stick to what they know and find comfort in, we are simply saying that this is not as effective, nor does it make a leader adaptable, especially when change is at the forefront of every business growth. As a matter of fact, the status quo thinking of a leader is what will determine if a business will either move upwards or downwards, not stay in the same position for a long period of time. Madam Speaker, transactional leaders are known to be stuck in their own way to the point where change is extremely daunting for them. This is because they tend to neglect the bigger picture or even make preparations for the future in favor of focusing on short-term objectives that they firmly believe will continuously succeed. It was seen that when Harvard Business Review asked employees how often their senior lecturers challenges the status quo or encourages them to think long term, 42% said never or almost never, while only 3% responded that they are always encouraged them to do so. Madam Speaker, we know that change can be difficult for many to embrace. However, as Martin Luther King famously noted, if the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, then the end is near. Lastly, the uses of practice of rewards and punishments for employee discipline. Madam Speaker, would this really be considered an advantage over transformational leadership? Some people are not driven by the prospect of receiving rewards. Rather, they are motivated by the prospect of performing well in their jobs or making a positive contribution to the world. As a consequence of this, a reward system could not be effective for all employees. Not all of us are driven by the same things at the same time. Some of us consider an increase in salary to be a reward, while others value the opportunity for additional time off. Others are also interested in additional benefits, such as premium healthcare or a more adaptable work environment. Therefore, Madam Speaker, it is difficult for businesses to come up with a reward that will satisfy all of their employees for the duration of their employment at the company. Whereas, on the other hand, transformational leaders are more effective since they are often hands-on and utilizes a more charismatic approach that will innately motivate their employees without the needs of rewards and punishments. Thank you.
Okay, we will now break for an intermission.
Sorry, hands raised.
Are there any questions? Was there a hand raised?
There was a hand raised before my hand, so I believe there was a question before mine.
Okay, the floor is open.
Okay, so I'll ask my question. Essentially, with respect to your transformational leadership style, how are employees disciplined for possibly like continuous poor performance or continuous poor performance or lack of effectiveness?
Ms. Garcia?
They are disciplined through trial and areas. Transformational leaders tend to allow their employees to learn through improvements without using punishments.
Thank you.
Okay, so we now break for our intermission.
I now call the House to recommence.
We will now have the first rebuttal by the opposition team. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Defenders, Mr. Akim Nolian, with a minute extra added to your time.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, evening, Madam Speaker, honorable members of the proposition, opposition, mediation team. I'd like to just present a question. What does it mean to be an effective leader? Does anybody know what it means to be an effective leader? The Oxford Dictionary defines effectiveness as simply success in producing a desired, intended result. Success in producing a desired, intended result. Effective leadership is about executing. Whether it's the company's vision, whether it's achieving sales targets or winning a war, execution is what is paramount. I must say, after hearing the opening statements of my colleagues across the floor, I expected to see some yellow cards being handed out. Just the statement alone, whilst yes, it is argumentative, it doesn't leave room for real life or real world scenarios. I'd like you to consider Mr. Bill Gates. Mr. Bill Gates is actually known for his transformational leadership style. But very importantly, I mean, everybody knows Mr. Bill Gates. He former wealthiest man in the world, Windows, that guy. Before being a transformational leader, he's also known for his strict following in chain of command. He delegates and guides through his employees on what exactly he needs and how it has to be worked about, giving them very little room for freedom. Control plays a central part in transactional leadership style. Bill Gates always focused on completing tasks at hand in an efficient and quick manner to achieve his target. Even though Bill Gates initially used a transactional leadership, initially only used transactional leadership skills, he was also open to transformational leadership after years of functioning in his capacity. Of course, when you're the richest man in the world, I'm pretty sure you'll be open to, experimenting and, doing things. But it's important to note that the foundation was through transactional leadership. That's how he was able to build his company. And even now, even though as he's recognized as a transformational leader, he still, with years of experience, has stated the importance of both skills. I asked the question if across the floor, if they knew that Mr. Jobs was fired, and how or why. So Mr. Jobs hired a CEO because he wasn't the CEO, although he was the founder. This could be because of his transformational leadership style. He was a very iconic and innovative person. Based on some product failures he had, the CEO pulled a lot of the power away from him in terms of the company. This frustrated Jobs. As a result, he basically puts it out there that, the company would have to vote in terms of who would be able to make certain decisions. And the board basically voted him out. He was fired. Imagine if he would have adopted some of the strategies that Bill Gates had adopted. I leave finally with you a question. Do you still believe in real world scenarios the transformational leadership is definitively more effective without transactional leadership styles? Thank you.
All right. So the floor is open for the proposing team. If you would like to take the question that Mr. Nolian just left. Ms. Garcia?
Madam Speaker, can I have permission to speak?
Sure.
Minister of Defender, are you aware that Mr. Jobs was in fact he came back into Apple 11 years later?
Yes, I know that he was actually rehired. But 11 years later, imagine what Apple could have been if he had remained on board for those 11 years.
Yeah,
Imagine if
sorry.
Imagine what they would have been right now had 11. I mean, look at the level of innovation they completed with him being on stream. After he came back, unfortunately, he passed away. And there's so many things that he was yet to offer. But the reason why he lost his position was because of his leadership style. If he had adopted a more authoritative style, he would not have been in that position. And I believe that Apple would have been further along the way for it.
So you're saying that he was actually punished for making a mistake?
I'm saying that he actually created a situation where the board took power away from him. He wasn't punished for making the mistake. Essentially, they didn't fire him because he made a mistake. They didn't fire him because of poor sales or because of the fact that the Lisa and the Macintosh didn't pan out with sales expectation. They fired him because he tried to do a power play, and he tried to how should I say? He tried to use his own authority, which is as the what you call it, boy, the as the founder, but lost because the company again followed the transformational leadership style, and the company as well suffered as a result of his ousting. That's why they had to hire him back. So it was just a mess altogether.
Okay, but point taken. But you know, he made it into the most unique and successful business and brand of all time, though, when he came back.
Imagine if he had 11 more years. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we will now break for our brief intermission.
The House is once again called back to order.
We will now move to the second rebuttal and conclusion from the proposition team. I will now welcome the Honourable Minister of Goalkeepers, Ms. Mason, and then the Honourable Ministers of Midfielders, Ms. Forrester, with an additional 20 seconds added to your time. You may begin.
Madam Speaker, micromanagement in transactional leadership prevents people from expanding their skill sets. Underranked firms have little room for creativity, much alone expressing distinct opinions and not going with predefined goals. This will cause many businesses that value employee growth and development difficulties. Leaders' ability to think outside the box affects an organization's growth. Transactional leaders are fixed in their ways and fear change. This is because they have built their own team using tried and true methods and techniques that reliably produce outcomes. Madam Speaker, employees and leaders at all levels of an organization need freedom to experiment, make errors, and fail without fear of being penalized in order for the firm to develop and prosper. The employees of transactional leaders are disciplined for not attaining their goals, and leaders does not allow for any room for failure or creative expression. Employees are not encouraged to come up with fresh ideas in these settings because of how it is structured. Instead, the leaders insist their followers adhere to the rigid system and work towards the objective they have been assigned with, regardless of whether or not this means sacrificing any other ideas. Short-term objective and specific activities are often what managers concentrate on. As a consequence of this, these responsibilities are completed successfully, but there is lack of focus on the future. It is possible that this won't be an issue for the manager if they oversee an entry-level workforce that performs very straightforward hard work. However, putting a damper on creative expression might backfire when it comes to more complex projects. Madam Speaker, the use of rewards as a means of motivating employees and increasing their level of satisfaction for primary focus of transactional management. They do not push much emphasis on working conditions such as relationship the employees have with their supervisor, which can be a significant factor in the level of engagement and contentment and employee experiences. It has been stated that 57% of employees have left a job because of their manager. As a result, the relationship between managers and employees is critical to the retention of staff. It is possible that you will lose good employees to other businesses if the sole emphasis of your executive is to ensure that the staff members fulfill their objective while they pay little attention to the importance of providing a positive working environment. Therefore, Madam Speaker, transformational leaders are cognizant to the fact that the company's growth depends on their openness to new ideas and methods. However, it's sometimes difficult to apply due to people's resistance. What sets transformational leaders apart and make them so powerful is the capacity to convince their supporters of the benefits and morality of change through the creation of a compelling new vision. If you want to implement business succession planning, then you need to develop employees as well as managers so that they are prepared to step up and take charge when a position in the company becomes empty. You will not have sufficient possibilities for learning and development for either management or employees if their responsibilities is to monitor the performance of the staff, while the manager's only responsibility is to ensure that a particular goal is met. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will now hand you over to the Minister of Midfielder.
Madam Speaker, in conclusion, this debate is about determining if transformational leaders are more effective than transactional leaders. It was proven today that transformational leaders provide encouragement through motivation. They practice the concept of intellectual stimulation by supporting upcoming leaders to be creative and innovative, and also to think fearlessly outside of the box, not worrying about the repercussions that may follow. Transactional leaders, on the other hand, stifles innovation and creativity. They maintain the status of having short-term objectives and or no long-term vision. They have no leniency for making mistakes. They do not build good work relationships. Their reward system as an incentive is not always effective. And last but not least, they limit the possibilities for their followers to become leaders. We have proven, not only with facts, but also statistics, Madam Speaker, which proves that transformational leaders are in fact more effective than transactional leaders. I thank you.
Okay, we will now break for our final intermission. The floor is open, Mr. Nolan. Ask your question.
Right. Good night again. My colleague just made a statement. She actually said in the midst of her dialogue that transactional leadership is not always effective. Does that mean that there are situations that it is more effective than transformational leadership? Thank you.
Yes, it is effective in military operations only.
Thank you.
And to add to that, it is only in the short term due to the arrangements.
We would have a difference in opinion, but thank you nonetheless for stating that it is more effective in certain scenarios.
The House will once again recommence.
We will now call on the speakers for the second and closing rebuttals for the opposition team, the Honourable Minister of Goalkeepers, Mr. Hussein, and the Honourable Ministers of Midfielders, Mr. Hunt, with a minute added to your time. You may proceed.
Good day, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much to one and all. So transactional leaders are proficient in managing groups of staff. Yes, there are short-term goals. Yes, there are supervisors and there's monitoring. Yes, there are reward as well as punishments. There are short-term goals probably in different departments. They could have more than one department, have a lot of short-term goals. In light of where we are right now with the situation, there's a possible outcome of a World War III. Who would you think would be the best person or the best department of our country to support us in a time like that? Won't it be the Army? The Army is effectively contributes to transactional leaders. Because if you make a mistake, because prior to this, someone said you can't even make a mistake. But in the Army, if you make a mistake, there's a high likelihood and possibility that you may die. So transactional leaders, it promotes employee motivation. It creates goals that are achievable for everyone. It requires precise instructions to be successful. It can reduce in cost for organizations and it eliminates confusions. So with everything, there are always flaws. For transformational leaders, there are flaws for lack of focus. By inspiring all of your teammates to motivate themselves, a lack of focus for the essential tasks can be happening. Or there's also a potential for burnout for transformational leaders. Employee success doesn't always rely outside the reward and validation, but this can also have negative results if employees aren't receiving any external motivations while they sustain high levels of internal motivation. They may seem to start feeling overwhelmed, underappreciated, or even burnout. It can have a disruptions of routines. Implementing a transformational leadership style requires everyone on staff to change their way of thinking about work, which can disrupt and confuse too much change happening at once, which can make undefined systems fall apart, cause employees to forget standard best practices. They can also cause fewer checks and balance, misuse of power, constant maintenance, favoritism, and loss of details. As I stated before, transactional leadership is short-term. Are you all aware that the democratic system debate currently happening that we are all taking part in? Transactional transactional leadership focus on short-term goals, just like this debate we are all doing right now. There's mediators that give us a specific schedule or task to get done with a specific time frame that we are all working on, and they are monitoring us just like supervisors. The reward on completing these tasks would be a perfect grade, but the punishment for not properly understanding or saying something out of place would be, or crossing over your time will be, you'll be getting scolded from the speaker. We are all part of the transactional leadership for this democratic system. So at the end of this, you can tell me how well it worked for you. With that said, I now hand you over to the Minister of Midfielders, Mr. Dennis Hunt.
Honorable members, as we conclude, I ask, are transformational leaders really more effective than transactional leaders? While each leadership style has strengths and weaknesses, both are effective in different situations and circumstances. Transactional leadership focuses on establishing clear expectations and goals and providing rewards and consequences for meeting these expectations. This style is particularly effective in environments where there's need for structure and stability. On the other hand, transformational leadership focuses on inspiring and motivating individuals to achieve their fullest potential. This style is particularly effective in environments where there is a need for motivation, a need for innovation and change. Ultimately, the key for effective leadership is the ability to adapt and use the right leadership style for the situation at hand. Both transactional and transformational leadership can be effective in the right context, and leaders should be able to use both styles effectively to achieve the best results. In short, transactional leaders are not worse than transformational leaders. Both styles have their strengths and can be effective in different situations. The key is for leaders to be able to adapt and use the right leadership style for the situation at hand. I'll leave you with this. In crunch time, when the pressure is on for deadlines and goals need to be met, who would you rather be in charge? A leader who is a leader who leads tactically, or one who sympathizes with your struggles. We thank you and good day.
Okay, we will now bring the motion that transformational leaders are more effective than transactional leaders, and we will now break for assessment. Thank you.